Recently I uploaded a song called 1665, completely recorded, mixed and mastered in Garageband. Since I put it online, I've had a lot of people messaging me and asking how I put it together. So there's really not too much to it, but I thought I'd do a breakdown of some of the tracks. It's not a tutorial as such, but hopefully some people might find this interesting or useful. So here's my project in Garageband. Before I begin any song, I always map out an arrangement track. It's really useful for a number of reasons, from moving sections of the song to influencing what the auto drummer does. As you can see, the song is made up of 5 verses and some intro sections and an outro section. So the song starts out with a modern synth bass alternating between an A minor and an F chord. Now I played this using my iPad, which I connected to my iMac, and used the Logic Remote app to play the notes that I needed. Sitting on top of this I've got an acoustic guitar, which I've doubled, so I recorded the same part twice, trying to play it as close as I could to the original. The guitar is just a cheap Korean-made Carlos guitar, which I mic'd up using a Rode NT1A, and I put that through a Behringer UMC204 interface. I quite like to double the acoustic guitar, it just makes it sound a bit thicker, and I pan one left, one right. Plugin wise, there is a few stock plugins and one paid for plugin, I suppose. The first plugin that I use is a plugin called True Iron by Kazrog. This is a paid plugin. It's a transistor emulator, and to my ears it kind of turns a digital sound into something a little bit more analog sounding. It's the only paid app that I use, and although it cost about $40, I consider it really well worth the money. I use it on every track, each and every one. Because it's so subtle, you can afford to do that. The standard compressor, I don't think I did anything with that, and a standard EQ. I used an electric guitar EQ on an acoustic guitar. It's just what sounded right to my ears. And I also throw in another EQ with just 2 little notches, one at 200 kHz and one at 400 kHz. Both dropped about 3 decibels, and it just takes out some of the ugly frequencies in your mix. And I tend to put this EQ on most of my tracks as well. One of the acoustic guitars contains a little bit of chorus. This is a Blue Cat chorus. It's a free plugin that I downloaded. Coming into the song now, we have my daughter, who is 6 years old, and she is singing a traditional nursery rhyme called Lavender's Blue, and her track is just down here.
Lavender's blue, dilly dilly, lavender's green. When I am king, dilly dilly, you shall be queen.
So I split her recording up to just get the timing right within the song. I've got the same plugins as the acoustic guitar, more or less. There's a tiny bit of tape delay on there, 5% delay, but I've cranked the master reverb up right to the top to give it that wash of sort of eeriness that reverb can provide.
Who told you so, dilly dilly? Who told you
Coming into the second verse, I'm just going to skip forward here.
We saw the
We have the lead
comet
vocal.
trail in winter. We wondered what the omen meant.
Once again, this master vocal track, I've just added a tiny bit of tape delay to it, and I've pushed the master reverb just up to just under half, just to give it a wee bit of body there. As far as the tape delay is concerned, it's literally just a tiny smidge of 5% sort of in there, just to again add a little bit of something to the voice. So the master vocal is made up of a number of takes. So down the bottom of the project I've kept all my vocal tracks. I did about 7 different vocal tracks, and I just took the best parts out of each and threw them together as a master vocal. As far as automation goes, you'll see it's all pretty flat. There's not much. I haven't really done a great deal of tweaking, just where the vocals have been maybe slightly too loud or slightly too quiet, and I've just adjusted the relevant section to just kind of give it a wee boost or a cut. As far as levels are concerned, I have them sitting quite low in the mix. So for example, the drum track is sitting -6.8 decibels, bass is sitting at -5. Acoustic guitars, because there are 2 of them, are sitting at -16. The synths are sitting at -19. Vocal wise, we're sitting at -17, give or take, and all the backing vocals are all sitting around -19.5. So I keep them deliberately quite low, so I can then boost them later in the mastering side of things. As we come into this intro, we've got my daughter singing her nursery rhyme again. We've also got a couple of coughs happening, and we've got this wee sound effect of horses on cobbles and a sort of a village market, I suppose it is. It's perhaps a little bit difficult to hear, but what that does is just add a little bit of texture underneath it actually. Coming into the second verse, and we have got classic analog hand comes in. Again, this is just adding a little bit of texture and helping to build the song.
The doors
When we get to the third
and
verse,
come the morning.
it starts to build a wee bit more again. I've included the bass guitar, which I'm not a great bass guitarist. I get by, but it's not the best playing you'll ever hear on a bass guitar. Accompanying the bass guitar is a little bit of shaker from the auto drummer.
But we're locked in for 4.
So when it comes to the auto drummer, what I do before I add the auto drummer is I play an acoustic guitar track along to the metronome, and once I've got that there, I then add the auto drummer. And what that does is it creates a series of custom drum patterns based on what you've got in the arrangement track. So whether it's an intro section, a verse section, an outro section. And as you can see here, rather than putting in a preset, it actually puts in a custom pattern there. And it just is quite nice to get something slightly different from the beat presets. I also keep the fills out of them as much as possible. And if I want to insert a fill, what I do is make a cut in the track, and then I add the fill, and that gives me the fill that I need. The reason I do that is so that if you were to put a fill on the whole section, you would get fills occurring in different places, which sometimes doesn't sound quite how you want it. So that's what I do with the drummer track. So coming into the end of the third verse, we have our drummer suddenly kicking in, and we're into the instrumental.
The candles burning.
The instrumental contains a couple of French horns, again played on my iPad, with the addition of a guitar pedal, which is the vibe, and that adds a little bit of texture to it, a bit of very subtle modulation to it. Also underneath the French horns are a series of backing vocals. Now I tend to go rather over the top when it comes to backing vocals. I enjoy doing them and I just can't stop sometimes, so here is something like a dozen odd tracks of backing vocal. On their own they sound absolutely terrible. Together they don't sound quite as bad, so here is some backing vocals. That sounds terrible, but it seems to work for the song. So all of these are underpinning the instrumental, and then they carry on into the next verse.
We had a visit from a searcher.
As we enter this fourth verse, there was originally an intro in between the instrumental and that verse, and this is where the arrangement track comes into its own. So all you need to do if you want to add or subtract is grab that section and slide it to where you need it, and that would have been the song with the intro section added, or you can just drag it and take it out. Having the intro in there just slowed the song down, so I just wanted to remove it and let it carry on into that next verse.
I saw her white cane by the court.
As we skip ahead to the fifth verse here, I've added a chamber choir underneath my own backing vocals, and again this just adds another little element of texture. It's all about helping the song to build towards its climax. Very fake sounding, but did the job.
Driver of the dead cart calls for me. You'll be alone, but it's okay.
The outro was really interesting. So the outro goes back to the same chord sequence as the introduction, just playing an A minor and an F. But what I did is I grabbed all of the backing vocals from the instrumental and just dragged them across and threw them into the outro. Now the problem with that, I suppose, is that the chords that are being sung and the notes that are being sung in the second half of that instrumental are different to the A minor and the F, but throwing it in there was just a little bit of serendipity on my part. It just seemed to work. So this section of backing vocals, I can just highlight them. Is the same as the ones in the instrumental. Underneath the A minor and the F chords just makes a really interesting dissonant sounds that kind of, to me, sounded really, really quite eerie, and I quite liked it, so I kept it in there. Also underneath that I've got my daughter's nursery rhyme played backwards and the reverse vocal. And overlaid that with her singing the nursery rhyme, or rather whispering the nursery rhyme. So I also panned the whispers left and right. And the last section, as the instruments fade out, is just my daughter singing.
Lavender's blue, dilly dilly, lavender's green.
And that's basically the song. So from just these few tracks, that's basically what I ended up with. I then did a mix that I managed to get sounding pretty good. I then exported that as an AIFF file to my desktop, and then I brought that file into a separate mastering project I like to master in Garageband, and I do it in a separate project so that it kind of keeps it clean and out of the way. I know you can master within the same project, but I prefer to do it in a separate project. And that's where we're going to head now, is to the mastering project, to show you what plugins I use there. And here we are in the mastering project. So I've brought the exported AIFF file of the mix into this project, and there are a number of plugins that I use to try and boost the sound so that it's sort of at least radio friendly level. First one that I use is my good old trusty True Iron again. There's actually a master setting in there. It's very subtle once again, and so I throw it on there just because. I'm not an expert when it comes to mastering, but I know what sounds right to my ears for my songs. There's also lots of other apps and different services online that will do mastering for you, and they are awesome things to use as well. I like to do things myself. I've found a number of plugins. These next few plugins are all free to download, and so they're ones that I use and they work for me. So following True Iron, there's a plugin which is called Slick EQ. It's by Tokyo Dawn Labs, TDR. So they provide a mastering EQ which has a number of presets that you can choose, and I'm all about the preset because I find I don't really know what I'm doing, so I'll go with a preset and then sort of make some basic adjustments from there. TDR also do a mastering compressor, and once again, factory presets. And there's a number of really cool presets that add something to different songs, just depending on the type of song that you've got and what you're going for. And the last plugin I use is another free one. It's called Limiter Number 6. It looks like something out of an old submarine or something like that, but importantly contain not only the compressor but have the peak limiters that help to boost the signal to the sort of level that you need. And once again, presets. So I tend to go with the preset and then make some minor adjustments based on that. It's a really good place to start, and that's all I do. Is just put a wee fade out in there if required. And this track here down the bottom is a guide track that I did when I was first writing the song. I knew what music I wanted to be like, and as you can tell by the waveform, it was rocky the whole way through. So what this track is an electric guitar and the auto drummer just doing its thing, just so I could get a feel for the pacing of the song and the structure of the song, and from there I used it to try and work out what lyrics I'd like to have in there. So this is what it sounds like. It's really bad. It's not the greatest recording, but it's enough to kind of get the creative juices flowing and get you thinking about the song and singing along to it and just trying to fit words in places and that sort of thing. So that's part of an insight into my songwriting and how I sort of go about putting together a song. So hopefully you have got something out of this. Once again, a huge thank you to everyone who's commented, fed back, expressed an interest or asked a question. Really appreciate it, and I hope that someone found this useful and interesting. Thanks very much for watching, and have a good one. Catch you later.